Hello class, and welcome to our lesson 2-8. I want you to first, let's take some time to point out the learning targets. They're always going to be posted up top here in our videos. Our first one is I can explain division. Division is equal sharing. Our second learning target for today is I can solve division problems by using equal sharing. So what I actually want you to do first is on page 50 here, you can see the title on your journal page. I want you to solve this problem, and we're going to use that to help us learn two new methods for dividing. So at this point, please pause the video and solve the problem on page 50. All right, now that you've paused the video and you've solved the problem, we're going to use this page, and I want you to follow along on page 50. I'm going to solve a different problem, and I'm going to show you two different methods. And what I want you to do is to check back to your work here on page 50 and see how you can change or adapt that model to fit with the two examples that I give you. So the problem we're going to look at is Riley is going to share her Pokemon cards with her friends. Altogether, they make 4, including Riley. So there's 4 people. If she has 24 cards, how many will each person receive? So the first method of the equal sharing is we're going to make and create individual groups. So one thing that I noticed is that there was 4 total girls, including Riley. So I'm going to draw and represent each one of those girls with a circle. So I've got my 4 groups. Now, that part's taken care of. What I need to do now is share the 24 cards. I'm going to let X equal 1 card. I like to include that little bit of a key there just so that anybody looking at my problem knows what that X represents. So I'm going to start counting. I'm going to put 1 in each box. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. And actually, while I'm writing that, I'm actually thinking in my mind like I'm passing out these cards to the 4 people because it helps me visualize that. So my next step is I need to check and see how many cards will each girl get. So I'm going to look and see and count. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So each girl will receive 6 cards. I'm going to include my number model to represent this. So I can see a few different options. I have 6 in each group. So altogether I have 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6 equals 24. Each one of these 6 is represented by one of these groups. We also can represent this number model in a different way. I can see that I have 4 individual groups. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I can represent that as 4 times 6 in each group equals 24. Lastly, I can have one more number model to represent this as well. I had 24 cards altogether. I divided those cards into 4 groups, and in each one of those groups there were 6 cards. I like this one the best as it's really representing, explaining, like we talked about up here above in our learning target, division. And division is equal sharing. So I really like this kind of number model here because it really represents that. So now at this point, I want you to pause the video. I want you to look back. I want you to look back to page 50 that you just completed with the sharing of pennies and make any changes necessary based on what we just did. When you're done, press play and we'll look at an example number 2. Let's take a look at example 2. Again, I'm going to review my learning target. I can explain division. Division is equal sharing, and I can solve division problems by using equal sharing. I want you to keep in mind the words that I'm using while I'm explaining this, as today when you submit your work in Seesaw, I'm going to have you choose one of your problems to record your audio as well. So you're going to be, in essence, making a video as well. So let's take a look at our second example. We have Emily, Shruti, and Megan were at lunch when they won a bag of M&Ms. Lucky ladies. They wanted to share them equally, and there were 27 in the bag. How many M&Ms will each of them get? So in this second example, we're going to look at using an array to divide. So we've used arrays when we did our array cities, and we used arrays to represent multiplication. So we're going to look at how can we build an array to divide. So the first thing that I want us to look at is how many groups do we have? And I see that we have Emily, Shruti, and Megan. So that, to me, there would be 1, 2, 3 different groups. So I'm going to start off by creating 3 different rows. And if you remember from lesson 2-7, our rows go across the page. So we're going to start them, and I'm going to use circles equal M and M's. So I've got my little key there to help my reader. So I'm going to start my rows. 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep adding 1 more M&M to each row. But now I'm at a total of 4 M&Ms, and I'm going to count up until I get to 27. When I get to 27, I'm going to stop. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. So now that I've got my visual representation there, I want to identify that, remember, each one of these rows is for each one of our classmates. So 1 row is Emily's, 1 row is Shruti's, and 1 row is Megan's. Because I identified those in rows, now I know how many each one of them will get. I simply need to count now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So each one will get 9 M&Ms. Now, remember too, we want to include our number model. So when we're thinking of this, we started with 27 M&Ms. We divided it by 1, 2, 3 people, divided by 3, and there were 9 M&Ms in each group. At this moment, please again pause. And if you haven't done this visual representation for the pennies, I want you to take some time to do so now. When you're finished and ready to move on to the next step, please press play. All right, welcome back. I've passed out page 61 to you, picturing division, and I just want to give you a rundown of what your procedure is going to be. So keeping in mind while you're solving these, keeping in mind the learning objectives that we have. And here is the steps. The first thing that you're going to want to do is solve both problems. You need to think about using pictures and words to show your thinking. Similarly to how I just gave you those two examples, I want you to be doing that same type of work, and that's what I'm expecting. After you solve both problems, choose the best response. And after you choose the best response, you're going to upload your work. Choose one of these questions, either one or two. Don't try to include both of them with Seesaw. And you're going to record your explanation over top of your work, just like I'm doing for you now. When you get finished, you can move on, as always, to math boxes for lesson 2-8 and any of our works in progress.